Good afternoon, I'm Jacqueline Felgate. It's 4 o'clock in Melbourne and we begin with breaking news. An urgent police operation unfolding in Melbourne's east as we go to air. 2 children abducted from a Blackburn North home. Details live. Also, COVID mystery, 22 unlinked cases as Melbourne's virus crisis worsens. The Prime Minister's impassioned plea for states to keep to vaccine targets. And the AFL launches its final series, but still no decision on where the grand final will be.
Live from Melbourne, this is 7's Afternoon News with Jacqueline Felgate.
First at 4 to breaking news, a 3-year-old and a 5-year-old are missing, taken from their home in Melbourne's east. Tegan Doling joins us live now from Blackburn North. Tegan, can you talk us through what we know right now?
Well, Jackie, the siblings have been missing for 7 hours and it's still a very active crime scene down at their home. I've got detectives over this side. There's forensics inside the home looking for any sort of evidence because the brother and sister were abducted around 8:45 this morning in what's looking more and more like a random kidnapping. Now, witnesses told us that she saw the mother of the children bound and gagged. She was in her driveway and she was trying to scream for help. It's understood that a man has broken into the property. He's stolen the family's black Mercedes, which was in the driveway, as well as the 2 children. The girl was aged 5 and her younger brother, who is 3 years old.
We saw a lady on the nature strip and her mouth was bound, her hands were bound and her feet and everything. So we thought that was strange, and then she was just screaming and there was someone there helping her and the police had obviously just arrived as well.
Where was she tied?
Her feet, her hands, and then she had something in her mouth as well.
She was terrified, really terrified. Well, as you would if this sort of thing happens.
I heard a child scream, but of course didn't take much notice of it because there's lots of kids around.
Now, the children's father wasn't home at the time. He is currently with the mother down at the police station. They are trying to work with police to find out exactly where their children are. As for the man who broke in, police have said that he has dark skin. He was wearing a mask as well as a black hoodie. Unfortunately, Jackie, we don't have any photos to publicise at the moment of the children other than saying they are of Asian appearance, and we are expecting an update from the police in the next half hour. Jack?
It is so distressing. Tegan Doling reporting live there. Thank you. Victoria's COVID crisis is showing no signs of slowing, with mystery cases doubling. Of today's 71 new cases, 22 are not linked. All this as Prime Minister Scott Morrison makes an impassioned plea to state premiers to stop lockdowns when we hit key vaccination targets. But up to 10,000 Victorians a day are cancelling or not turning up to vaccination appointments. We'll bring you every angle in the hour ahead. Our coverage, though, begins with Chanel Vella.
Delta is spreading across our suburbs.
We're seeing again a spread into new suburbs in the Melbourne area, suburbs like Essendon West, Camberwell, Thornbury and Fitzroy North, Maidstone, and then all the way down to Sorrento.
And the race is on to stop it.
Nobody in this state is safe or immune from this.
Today there were 71 new cases, 16 were in isolation, but 22 are mystery cases, and that's the number we have to drive down.
There's not too many more restrictions that we can put on. Ultimately, the thing that will make the difference in bringing these numbers down further is compliance with these current rules.
Newport and Altona North are still major areas of concern. There are now 61 cases in those suburbs and the clusters are growing.
I'm particularly appealing to really to younger men in the Newport area, Newport and Altona North area. If you're active in the community, if you're in your 20s and your 30s, come forward and get tested.
29 people are in hospital, 9 are in intensive care and 5 of them are on ventilators. And the number of children contracting COVID is still rising.
112 are children under the age of 10. 100 are people aged between the ages of 10 and 19, and a further 79 are in their 20s. Again, it's a very, very young age profile. We've also got examples of children, collapsing at school and vomiting at school. That's how ill they are. And when we then go to the households, we realise that there are not just one person's positive, but actually there are a number of people in the household who are positive. There are a range of symptoms being displayed.
But there's also problems in our hospitals. There are now 10 people in the Royal Melbourne Hospital cluster. 450 staff have had to be furloughed.
That is a significant impact on one of our most important and prestigious hospitals.
The Premier and Prime Minister have again pleaded with the public to get the jab, saying the only way to zero is a combined effort of lockdowns and vaccination. Scott Morrison with a message for state leaders.
If not at 70% and 80%, then when? Then when? We must make that move, because this cannot go on forever. This is not a sustainable way to live in this country.
I don't want to lock the state down, lock everyone down, to protect people who wouldn't protect themselves.
Chanel Vella, 7 News.
As we've just heard, debate is raging about the path out of lockdown. The Prime Minister is standing by 70 and 80% vaccination targets from Doherty Institute modelling, even as Australia's two biggest states remain locked down with worsening daily case numbers. Professor Sharon Lewin is a director at the Doherty Institute. Professor, thank you so much for talking to us this afternoon. We're hearing about these targets every day, but is it that simple?
It's not simple, but the targets are absolutely accurate. 70 to 80% vaccination will have a huge impact on the options that we have. 78%, 80% vaccination protects a very large number of people, and the path out from what we're experiencing now. However, one important issue that people have to understand is that at 70 to 80% vaccination, we will have more freedoms, but we will be living with COVID. We can't live with zero COVID. We'll be living with COVID, but it will be manageable once we have 70 to 80% of people vaccinated.
And let's talk about managing it. The Doherty modelling at the heart of the four-phase plan was based on case numbers less than 30 a day. We're already double that here in Victoria. Do we need to reset our exit expectations now?
No, we don't. As we get more and more people vaccinated, we will have a bigger impact on reducing and bringing down transmission. When we open at 70 to 80% vaccination, we will have people with COVID. We will have cases, and unfortunately we will even have some deaths from COVID, but it will be at a manageable low level, a little bit like how we live with influenza. If we open up with more, even if we open up hundreds of cases, that is still possible and people will still be largely protected. I should just add, though, there is no freedom day. It's not as if we go from one day to being locked down and one day to everything being back to normal. 70 to 80% of vaccination. We still need some public health measures in place to keep things at a manageable level. It will be a little more challenging when we have hundreds of cases in the community compared to tens of cases, but it doesn't mean it's not possible.
OK, let's look at the New South Wales figures today now. They're obviously racing ahead of other states in vaccination rates, but still over 800 cases a day. When do you think they could realistically expect to come out of lockdown?
Well, again, their targets will be, and I really hope that the whole nation works together on this, because the agreed strategy is that the whole nation is at 70 to 80% when we move to Phase B. And New South Wales could move to Phase B even with those large, for their health departments to contain the 800 cases and not let that continue out of control. When we open up at 70 to 80%, it's really important to realise that having more people vaccinated does help our public health efforts and also greatly reduces the number of people that go to hospital and require healthcare. So I think opening up for New South Wales will be possible. It will be possible even with 100 cases a day, but they have to reach those targets, as does the whole country.
Professor Sharon Lewin, it's always great to get your thoughts. Thank you so much for joining us this afternoon.
Pleasure. Thanks very much.
There's been a breakthrough this afternoon for parents who've stopped sending their children to daycare. The federal government has just announced a new round of funding for childcare services. To receive it, services will have to pass on gap fee waivers to parents, meaning those keeping their kids home during lockdown won't be paying out-of-pocket costs when they aren't using the service. New South Wales has recorded 818 new cases of COVID and 3 more people have died. But the state is on track to reach its initial 6 million jab target a week early. The ACT has recorded 16 further cases, and across the Tasman, New Zealand has recorded 35 new cases, taking their active case count to 107. The AFL has launched the final series with no decision yet on a grand final venue. For the second year running, there'll be no footy in Victoria this September, but the race for the premiership is as hot as ever. Andrew McCormack has more.
Well, just days away from the start of the AFL final series, still no decision from AFL House on the biggest game of all, the AFL Grand Final. The negotiations continue with the Victorian government. One thing is for certain, it won't beat the MCG.
We are in conversations with, as I say, WA and SA governments about hosting potential grand finals there. We're continuing those conversations. We want to have a firm contingency plan in place. And so therefore, if we get an answer in the next couple of days, maybe we're not in a position to lock away the grand final location for a day or so after that.
And hubs are back on the agenda. Teams will likely stay interstate after the first week of finals this weekend instead of returning to Victoria, giving them greater flexibility to move between states. Melbourne hit the training track today after claiming its first minor premiership in 57 years. The club daring to dream to break its premiership drought that leads all the way back to 1964.
You catch yourself sometimes thinking about what if, why can't it be us, I suppose. You set out as a team to, have ultimate success, and at the start of the year you write down you want to win a premiership.
Chapel Street night spot Morris Jones showing that its heart beats true.
I'm praying, we're full of hope. Don't want to get ahead of ourselves just yet, but keeping a lid on it.
The D's might be the sentimental favourites this September, but this year's finals race is as open as it's ever been. Now, while Victorians won't get to experience any finals action up close for a second straight year, the AFL has announced a price freeze on tickets for another season. Tickets went on sale at 2 o'clock this afternoon, another batch for club members at 5 p.m. Melbourne time.
Up next, the race to escape from Kabul, the latest from Afghanistan as world leaders weigh in. And a warning for all Australians sending Christmas parcels. Stay with us on this Monday in Melbourne. Live from Melbourne, you're watching 7's Afternoon News. It's just 11 degrees outside right now, and Jane Bunn will be here with the forecast later in the hour. Police Minister Lisa Neville has returned to work. Ms Neville had been on sick leave for 5 months as she battled Crohn's disease flare-ups. She will continue her roles as Minister for Water and Police, but on doctors' advice, she will no longer look after emergency services because of the amount of travel involved. Australia has completed more emergency flights out of Afghanistan, rescuing hundreds of vulnerable men, women and children. The White House says American military flights have airlifted almost 4,000 people out of Kabul in the past day. But the evacuation is still chaotic, with thousands of people descending on the airport. At least 7 lives have been lost in the stampede.
Desperation and panic in equal measure as thousands try to get out of Kabul. Some hold up their foreign passports, but not even that is a guarantee of a quick exit from Taliban control.
I'm a British citizen and I've got my kids are British and they're stuck here. They close the door at us and they're shooting back at us. Well, my message for the Prime Minister is just to get us out from here.
Those who fear for their future the most are former translators who worked with foreign troops during the war that lasted a long 20 years.
I am the British interpreter and I worked for 1 year in Nadali in Helmand.
With the Marines?
Yeah, for 5 Commando, yeah.
Those foreign forces, including Australians, have a tough task, trying to identify and process those with the right to leave.
In the last 24 hours, we have evacuated over 450 people from Kabul on those 4 ADF flights, including Australian and New Zealand citizens, UK evacuees, Afghan locally engaged employees and visa holders.
Former British Prime Minister Tony Blair has taken aim at American President Joe Biden.
You've now got this group back in charge of Afghanistan. They will give protection and succour to Al-Qaeda.
While former Australian Prime Minister John Howard, responsible for committing Australian troops to battle, maintains the Afghanistan war was not a failure.
Going to Afghanistan in the first place was to deny Al-Qaeda the capacity for a like attack for that which occurred on the 11th of September. Well, the mission for the last 20 years has been totally successful.
With tensions growing on the perimeter of Hamid Karzai Airport, the Pentagon has announced commercial planes will be called in to help with the airlift. Hayden Nelson, 7 News.
Australians are being warned to get their online Christmas shopping done early to avoid disappointment. Retailers say serious congestion in global supply chains is causing massive delays in shipping new consumer goods. Delays have been ongoing since the pandemic began, but the situation is worsening due to the current Delta outbreak, port closures and fewer freight ships. Carlton's highly anticipated football review is complete, but there's still no word on coach David Teague's future. We'll have the very latest next. And a sneak peek behind the doors of tomorrow's opening Paralympics ceremony. Stay with us right here on 7. Carlton's highly anticipated football department review has been handed down. Chief Football reporter Tom Brown is monitoring developments from Princes Park. Tom, there hasn't been an announcement on coach David Teague's future.
Jack, it's been a day of drama and intrigue here at the Carlton Football Club. Even David Teague, post-game on the weekend, was resigned to the fact, in his view, he was expecting to get the sack when he arrived here this morning. That hasn't taken place as yet. Instead, what took place was that Luke Sayers, the incoming president, arrived early this morning, as did Kane Little, as did David Teague and Jeff Walsh, who's been involved in the review. They held a meeting inside digesting the contents of that review, and at the moment the club is going through that review and will take the time to make a decision. Now, they issued a statement this morning, Carlton. They've been silent on Teague's future for the last couple of months, saying they'll take time to digest the contents of the review, brief the senior club leaders on the review, and it didn't make mention of Teague's future. Now, I've spoken to club sources this afternoon. The common view in football is that Teague is perhaps unfairly getting strung along in this process. They're aware of the criticism, but they want to take time to make the right decision. We'll have more on this intriguing and very interesting story shortly in our bulletin. I've got more on this story at 6 o'clock, Jack.
OK, we'll see you then. Thank you, Tom. Ash Barty has won her 5th title this year. The Aussie powering past Swiss wildcard Jill Tetchman in straight sets at the Cincinnati Masters. Tetchman, ranked 76th in the world, had no answers to the Wimbledon champions game. Ash comfortably winning 6-3, 6-1.
Unbeatable, unbelievable form.
It's so nice to play out in front of you again. I've seen so many smiling kids enjoying tennis. You genuinely reminded me of how much I love this sport.
It's an ominous warning for her rivals ahead of the US Open, which kicks off next Monday. And we have an exclusive sneak peek of the opening ceremony of the Tokyo Paralympic Games for you. Rehearsals are well underway ahead of the launch tomorrow night. The concept for the performance is We Have Wings, a nod to the courage of our Olympians. The opening ceremony is tomorrow night, right here on 7. A retiring firefighter in London got an extra special send-off that he's unlikely to forget. Andrew Shaw was attending his final roll call at London's Soho Fire Station when American actor Harrison Ford happened to be passing by. The Star Wars star congratulated Mr. Shaw on his 31 years of service and wished him well in retirement. Harrison Ford is in London filming his 5th Indiana Jones movie. We're standing by to hear from police after 2 children were taken from a Blackburn North home. There's a lot of unanswered questions, so stay with us for that. Also, the Prime Minister is pleading with state premiers to open up when vaccination targets are reached. Hear from Scott Morrison next as Victoria's case numbers rise again. And our national airline launches an emotional new vaccination campaign. We're back in just a couple of minutes.
Live from Melbourne, this is 7's Afternoon News with Jacqueline Philgate.
Good afternoon again. Our top story, a 3-year-old and a 5-year-old have been taken from their home in Melbourne's east. We're standing by to hear from police. While we wait, Tegan Dolling is at Blackburn North. Tegan, there's a lot of police activity there at the moment.
There is, Jackie. We've actually just seen 5 carloads of new detectives come down to the scene here. They're clearly ramping up their efforts. And just as we go to air, we can see the forensics behind us here. They've been inside the home for most of the day, and they've just started to fingerprint the front gate here as they try to piece together exactly who has abducted this brother and sister. We know it was around 8:45 this morning when the 5-year-old girl and her 3-year-old brother were taken from their home. A man has broken into the house, and not only has he taken the siblings, but he's also taken off in the family car, a black Mercedes. Now, shockingly, witnesses have told us that they saw the mother. She was bound and gagged, and she was left in the middle of the driveway where she was trying to scream for help. The neighbours here have told us they're a very friendly family. They've been here for around 18 months. The father wasn't home at the time, but he is now with the mother, with the child's mother, Jackie. They're at the police station, and we are expecting to hear from the Armed Crime Squad very soon for an update into this investigation.
Tegan Dolling, thank you, reporting live there. Victoria's COVID crisis is showing no signs of slowing, with mystery cases doubling. Of today's 71 new cases, 21 are not linked. 29 people are in hospital, 9 are in intensive care, and 5 of them are on ventilators. And the number of children contracting COVID is still rising. Prime Minister Scott Morrison says we can't live in fear, urging state and territory leaders to stick to the agreed plan to reopen the country. Political reporter Taylor Aiken is in Canberra. Taylor, he says we must move forward as a country.
Prime Minister Scott Morrison has warned rolling lockdowns and shutting Australia off from the rest of the world once the population is fully vaccinated simply isn't sustainable. He's called on state and territory leaders to honour the commitment they made in response to the Doherty Institute's modelling presented to National Cabinet. The modelling states a phased reopening once 70% of the population is vaccinated and more freedoms again at 80%.
If not at 70%, and 80%, then when? Then when? We must make that move.
But some state leaders, including Queensland Premier Anastasia Palaszczuk and WA Premier Mark McGowan, argue the modelling was based on low case numbers.
Everyone on National Cabinet acknowledged that the extra research needs to happen. The extra modelling now needs to happen.
Prime Minister Scott Morrison, however, says it's the only way forward.
We should not delay it. We should prepare for it. We should not fear it. We should embrace it. And we should move forward together, because this cannot go on forever. This is not a sustainable way to live in this country.
The Prime Minister is saying the national focus needs to start shifting away from daily case numbers, instead focusing on how we manage serious illness and hospital admissions. The National Cabinet has requested updated advice from the Doherty Institute that takes into account the current caseload, with the Prime Minister hoping he can get everyone back on the same page and begin leading Australia out of the pandemic, all while facing a looming election.
For more, I'm joined by Melbourne University epidemiologist Tony Blakely. Tony, as always, thank you for talking to us. Firstly, where are we headed with these case numbers in Victoria, in your opinion?
They're not looking great. 20-odd mystery cases this morning. Now, some of those will get resolved in the next few days, but there's still going to be at least 10, I suspect, cases that we don't know where they got it from. That means that in a week or so, we'll still see infections popping up in the community from those unknown chains of transmission. And at the bigger picture, we're up to 70-odd cases, and we're not seeing the number of infectious cases in the community coming down. So this is not tracking the way that we would like. There's still a chance, a small chance, and I hope for it, that maybe things will turn by the 2nd of September and we'll come out of this tickety-boo. But I think we need to start planning for the fact that we may not.
And what sort of numbers are we looking at the moment? As you said, 71 cases today. Are we going to see those rise exponentially now, or will the lockdown help keep them somewhat contained?
Look, the honest answer is I don't know, but I suspect they'll stay stable. We are in a hard lockdown now, and we're over a week since that weekend where we all went out and had our pub crawls and drunk our beer with no masks on and crowded together into the playgrounds, and we've been in a hard lockdown now for a week. So I would expect they will stabilise. Whether they will turn or not within the next 7 days, 10 days is the big question, and I fear not with that number of mystery cases out there.
Now, you've obviously been an advocate for our hard lockdowns to date, but your modelling now talks about soft lockdown in the pathway out. What do you actually mean by a soft lockdown, and when would we see that introduced?
All right, let's back a bit here. The elimination strategy always had a pivot to living with the virus at some point in time. New South Wales' hand has been forced earlier. Our hand may be forced in Victoria earlier than we'd like. For states and territories that don't have COVID in them now, keep hammering those outbreaks when they happen and stay at an elimination until you get to 80% vaccination of adults and preferably kids as well. Right, back to Victoria. The situation we've got here is we may not get back to near zero by 2 September. We've been in a hard lockdown for quite a while and getting harder. The population may not stomach it for that much longer. If we had, say, cases of 20 or 30 per day on 2 September, you know, that would require another 3 weeks of hard lockdown. We may be successful, but then another incursion from New South Wales and up go the numbers. So these are the options that we've got. Another option, I'm not advocating it, but I'm raising it as a discussion point for the next week, is we could actually ease back into a soft lockdown, knowing the numbers will go up, but that we'll catch it. We'll catch it about October with the increasing vaccination coverage and turn it at around 300, 400 cases per day and do a tidy, unlike the New South Wales messy, tidy bridge over to when we get to 80% vaccination coverage in November or so. It's just an idea, but we need to have discussion about these ideas in the next week if the news on 2 September is not as good as we would like.
And just how high can we expect the daily COVID case numbers to get once we're out of lockdown? And we really do have to change our mindset towards that, don't we?
So it depends what you mean by out of lockdown. But if what you mean is when we get to 80%, say, vaccination coverage of adults, and I suggest children also, before the borders open up, we'd probably be having lockdowns about 5 to 10% of time. But once we open up the borders and we start allowing international arrivals coming in, the frequency of lockdowns will go up a bit as we cope with more incoming infection. Exact percentages we'll be releasing results on tomorrow.
Tony Bailey, as always, thank you so much for your thoughts. We do appreciate it.
Pleasure. I hope that was useful.
Qantas has ramped up the vaccination push with an emotional ad campaign and flight bonuses. The commercial comes as the airline gives away points and discounts to frequent flyers who've had the jab.
So where are you headed? Singapore for a wedding. Taking the kids to Disneyland Resort.
London. Going to see someone very special to me. We want to encourage as many people as possible and to recognise the people that have taken the vaccine. So we think the vaccine is our ticket out of this COVID problem that we have.
There'll also be a mega prize draw with winners to receive a year's worth of flights, accommodation and fuel. Margie Osmond is the CEO of the Tourism and Transport Forum and she's joining me live now. Margie, thank you for being with us this afternoon. That ad, it's really incredibly powerful. Do you think it will help the vaccination campaign?
Oh, look, absolutely. And I think all credit to Qantas and the other parts of the industry that are engaging in, if you like, incentivising people to go out and get their vaccinations. But it's also important to remind people why we travel. And that's what Qantas is so good at, you know, reminding people about it's not just the flight, it's the product of the flight, reconnecting with the people you love and care about.
And so true. Would you rather, though, perhaps see a similar idea focused on travel within Australia, given the state of the tourism in our country now too?
Well, look, to be perfectly frank, we need domestic tourism firing because we're still a way off the international space. But that will take vaccinations and border openings. And I think, you know, the most we can hope for is that ads like this, even though they're focused on the international, encourage everybody to get vaccinated. So we're all in a position that much more quickly to get back to something that looks like normal life.
Yeah, wouldn't that be lovely? The Prime Minister has made some strong comments today about moving out of lockdown and learning to live with the virus. Realistically, would the tourism industry be feeling more certain after his comments or still locked in the holding pattern to see what states are going to do now?
Well, it's always a case of what the states may do and how they will respond to the exercise. I think the industry would probably say the jury's out at this point in time. We think it's absolutely critical that the states stick to the plan. If it's meant to be, 70 to 80% vaccination means we're all ready to go. Well, we all need to stick to that. This industry has taken so many blows. We're about to lose the September school holidays, so that's 4 sets of holidays in a row. We're in a desperate situation.
Yeah, it's been an incredibly tough 18 months. Margie Ellsman, thank you so much for joining us this afternoon.
Thanks, Jackie. Take care.
If you've just joined us, we are standing by to hear from police after 2 children were taken from a Blackburn North home. They're due to speak at any moment. Also ahead, the IVF breakthrough set to help thousands of couples desperate to become parents. We're back soon, right here on 7. Now, we can all certainly do with a smile in these long lockdown days, and we're about to meet one 11-year-old who's helped the cause. Archie Stoke and Mum Sarah are with me now. Thank you so much, both of you, for joining us. Sarah, I love this story. Why did your son take a morning stroll in a dinosaur costume?
We were sitting outside in the sun on Sunday morning and Archie was pretty bored, so he ran inside and got his dinosaur costume. And then everyone walking past in the street was loving it. They were giving him big waves, cars were tooting, dogs were barking.
People were taking photos.
People were taking photos. So Archie was like, I need to take this further. So he walked up to Princess Park and had a ball.
Yeah.
Archie, tell us why you decided to do that. I love it.
I guess I was just really bored at home and I really wanted to make people smile. I wanted to get out there, do some fun stuff, and I thought of that.
And what was the reaction from all the people that passed you?
Everyone was like smiling and laughing. Everyone was like taking pictures of me and it was so crazy. Everyone was looking at me.
And now you're on the news. Are you surprised it's got so much attention, your little idea?
I didn't think anyone was going to see it. I didn't even know someone was recording me from there.
Oh, Sarah, it's lovely that he's brought a smile to so many people's faces.
Yeah, it was beautiful, beautiful.
Oh, guys, thanks so much for having a chat to us this afternoon. We really appreciate it, and you'll have to get back out there again.
Thanks, Jackie. See ya.
Bye.
Melbourne scientists are celebrating a breakthrough in IVF development. Researchers from Monash and RMIT have identified a womb molecule which helps them narrow down the best timing to implant an embryo. The next step is to create a test or scan so doctors can identify each patient's golden window of opportunity for the best chance of a successful pregnancy. And our full report on that is coming up at 6. Vaccination rates in Melbourne's north have been lagging. So today, a drive-through hub opened in the car park of the old Ford factory in Campbellfield. It's hoped eventually up to 2,000 people a day will be vaccinated there. Nick McCallum is with the doctor in charge of the hub.
I'm with Dr. Anthony Tobin. He's the Chief Medical Officer at St Vincent's. They run the Campbellfield Drive-In Vaccination Hub, which opened today. Doctor, what difference will that hub make?
Well, I think it'll make a huge difference because it's opening up a whole new centre for a group of people that probably haven't had easy access to vaccination because most of the other major hubs are in the inner city. It's a great place because it's a huge area and so that it enables us to do drive-in vaccinations because that takes a large area. But we'll also have walk-in vaccination there. It's close to public transport. And it allows people to drive or catch public transport. So, and it's taking the vaccination centre to an area of need.
It's got a low vaccination rate out there in those suburbs around Broadmeadows, Campbellfield. Why do you think that is?
I think it's many reasons, and some of it may be just that it's a multicultural area. That maybe our messaging hasn't been as good as it could be, and I think. As I said, access to vaccination has not been as good out in those suburbs.
What sort of numbers do you hope to ramp up to then?
Well, we're starting off with 2,000 but over a week, but we would hope to get over 2,000 a day, like we have at the exhibition buildings here. We're doing 2,500 a day here. The faster we can do this, the sooner we'll get out of this COVID crisis, because vaccination is the key to us getting out of this.
Thank you very much, Dr. Anthony Tobin from St Vincent's.
Jane Bunn isn't far away with a look at the weather, plus the race to connect more COVID mystery cases as Melbourne's virus numbers grow. Stay with us right here on 7 News.
Know the headlines as they break. Know the stories as they happen. With 7news.com.au, know the news now.
OK, let's return to our breaking news. Police are providing an update on the possible abduction of 2 young children at Blackburn North.
In Blackburn North. What we know at this stage is that we have a person has attended that address in the early hours of this morning. We believe anywhere perhaps from about 8 o'clock, 8:30 this morning. And a female inside that address, the mother of the 2 children, has been assaulted. The mother of the 2 children is currently seeking undergoing treatment at hospital in relation to the injuries she's received. A black 2014 Mercedes-Benz registration number BEQ882 that belongs to that family was stolen by this particular offender. The 2 children, aged 5 and 3, were also taken from the address by this particular offender in what we believe to be the black Mercedes-Benz. That Mercedes-Benz was last seen leaving the address at about 8:45 a.m. this morning, travelling east along Springfield Road in Blackburn North. We're currently speaking with the mother of the 2 children and also the father, and they are both cooperating with us and doing everything they can to assist us to locate their children. Obviously, they're very concerned as to what has happened and would like their children recovered as soon as possible. What I'm appealing for today is anyone in the public that may have seen that black Mercedes-Benz. If you've got dashcam footage, if you are in the area of Blackburn North this morning, anywhere from probably 8:30 a.m. Onwards this morning, if you're in that area and you saw that car, would you please contact Crime Stoppers or your nearest police station and share that information with us? We also need to be very conscious that that vehicle may have moved on from Blackburn North. It could be in another suburb in Melbourne. We don't know its whereabouts at this stage, and hence the appeal for members of the public who may have seen that car to please come forward and share that with us. Now, the 2 children that we're dealing with today, Adila Wally, who is 5 years old, and her little brother, Bilal Wally, who is 3 years old. Obviously, they would be in great fear and obviously wanting to see their mum and dad and be reunited with them as soon as possible. So again, could anyone please, with information in relation to this matter, please come forward and pass that on to Crime Stoppers or their nearest police station. Those images of the 2 children will be released this afternoon. We've already released images of the vehicle that was stolen, and again that registration number was BEQ882. So please, if anyone has information, if they could please share that with Crime Stoppers or their nearest police station. At this stage, we're treating it as an isolated incident. We've not found any other crimes in the area that sort of meet, this particular incident. We're working on the premise that it is isolated, and obviously we're working closely with mum and dad to try and ascertain further information and help us get to the stage where we can find these 2 young children, and obviously those responsible for this crime. We're hopeful of resolving this incident, but we rely on that. We need the information of the public to come forward. Obviously, any crime that involves, the taking of children is treated very, very seriously. We have a number of police working on this at the moment. We've got many people, many uniformed members in the area. We've got a number of detectives working tirelessly on this to try and ascertain where these children are so that we can liberate them and get them home to their mum and dad. So thank you.
Where was the father of the children at the time of the situation?
Yeah, the father was at work this morning, and again, as I say, he's with us at the moment, and he's cooperating fully with us and doing everything in his power to sort of provide whatever information he can to get to the bottom of this.
Do you think it's random, targeted? Any ideas on that front?
Look, we're certainly working on the premise that it's an isolated incident. There's no other crimes that have occurred that make us think they're linked to anything else that has happened. And again, as I say, we're working closely with mum and dad, to really understand what's behind this. But we're certainly working at the moment on the fact that this is an isolated matter to this particular address.
By that you mean it's not random?
Sorry?
OK, that is Detective Inspector Dean Thomas with that alarming news from Victoria Police there. We'll have full coverage at 6 o'clock. Also at 6, Peter Mitchell has exclusive pictures of a driver's altercation with cyclists in a shocking rage attack. And Jane Bunn will have the very latest weather. For now, though, that is 7 News to this hour. Take care.